Mass media is a system of communicating messages and symbols to the public. The function is to entertain, inform, and instill values and beliefs into the public who will integrate them into our institutional structures. In countries with a powerful government and a media monopoly often controlled by state censors, the media serves the elite. For a daily newspaper, 75% of the potential news items are rejected. For television networks, rejected news items are much higher. The United States media may present facts to the best of their ability, but do they show opposing viewpoints? Who decides what we see, and with what amount of repetition? What we see, how often we see it, and what we don't see has an enormous impact on our worldview. Edward Herman and Noam Chomsky, in their book Manufacturing Consent, said the following: "The essential ingredients of our propaganda model, or set of news filters, fall under the following headings. Number 1, the size, concentrated ownership, owner wealth, and profit orientation of the dominant mass media firms. 2, advertising as the primary source of income of mass media. 3, the reliance of the media on information provided by government, business, and quote-unquote experts funded and approved by these primary sources and agents of power. Number 4, flack as a means of disciplining the media. And number 5, anti-communism as a national religion and control mechanism." Manufacturing Consent was originally published in 1988, with the Soviet Union still intact. Anti-communism has since been replaced by conditional patriotism as the national religion and control mechanism. The first filter of the American propaganda model is the mammoth investment necessary for the ownership of any media with a substantial audience. This has changed somewhat since Herman and Chomsky wrote Manufacturing Consent, with internet-based alternative media gaining market share, but credibility, size, and influence still resides with traditional media. The second filter is the dominance of ad-funded media. In the early days of news media, papers derived their revenue from sales. In time, the newspapers that accepted advertising revenue had a competitive advantage over those papers that derived their revenue only from sales. Advertising revenue allowed the paper to lower costs to the reader and to improve the presentation of the paper. Eventually, ad-based media became dominant. Television networks are big businesses where a single percentage drop in the audience can amount to a loss of $100 million in ad revenue per year. In quote-unquote free media, advertisers are kings, and they demand a captive, engaged audience. If a news outlet features unpopular information, then advertising revenue suffers. There's an incentive to provide information desired by the audience and to leave out undesirable information. This is one reason Fox and CNN provide partisan news. They're catering to their audience and advertisers. The third filter in the American propaganda model is the source of the news. The media outlets need a large amount of reliable news to meet their production schedules. They can't afford to have reporters and cameras on street corners waiting for something to happen, so they concentrate their efforts where news occurs. The White House, the Pentagon, and the State Department offer daily fodder for the media. For local media, it's City Hall and the Police Department. Corporations and business groups also contribute regular material to news outlets. These government and corporate sources are seen as credible because of their prestige. Mass media outlets claim to be objective and factual producers of news. Official sources help to maintain that image of objectivity and to protect themselves from libel suits. If they covered a controversial story by an unofficial source, the likelihood that they would have to defend themselves from a lawsuit is much higher. If they stick with official sources and uncontroversial, entertaining stories, they stand to earn a higher profit for shareholders. The fourth filter, flack, refers to negative responses to a media statement or program. Negative responses may arrive as letters, lawsuits, congressional bills, threats, boycotts, petitions, phone calls, emails, etc. Flack can be created by large institutions or individuals. If flack is produced on a large enough scale, it can be costly to media outlets. Stories and positions have to be defended, sometimes escalating to legislatures and courtrooms. Advertisers, not wanting their products associated with negative controversy, may withdraw ads. Even if a position is true, if it offends, then it is likely to produce flack. Advertisers do not like to offend potential customers. It is not surprising that news organizations avoid covering controversial material if it is likely to offend their audience. According to Herman and Chomsky, the fifth and final filter of the American propaganda model is the ideology of anti-communism. This is where I part ways with Herman and Chomsky. Anti-communism has lost its importance since the fall of the Soviet Union. During the Cold War, anti-communism served to build the military-industrial complex, increase state power, and build acceptance for growing government power over the American populace. In my opinion, conditional patriotism and the belief in the moral authority of the United States government has replaced anti-communism as the fifth filter of the American propaganda model. I say conditional patriotism because American politics has become very partisan, very tribal over the past decade, with Republicans being very patriotic while Trump was in office, and now Democrats are patriotic with Biden in office. There's an almost cult-like belief in their team, whether they be on Team R or Team D. I write stories that reflect the truth about government and our society. If you'd like to learn more and support my work, check out my books at the link below. Thank you.